In this lesson, we will be looking at a series of numbers and determining whether it creates an arithmetic sequence or not. So first of all, a sequence is a set of numbers in a specific order. I'm sure you've seen a lot of these on standardized tests where it gives you a series of numbers and then it says predict the next number. That's a sequence. A term is just one of those numbers in that set of numbers. Okay? Excuse me. An arithmetic sequence is a series of numbers where the difference between each term in the sequence is the same. Okay? So a number or a sequence that would go 2, 4, 6, 8, every time it's jumping up by 2, that would be an example of an arithmetic sequence. Okay? And then the common difference is that number that you're either adding or subtracting to get to the next number each time. That's called that common difference, and this will make more sense if we do it. So here is an example of an arithmetic sequence. My series of numbers would be 7, 12, 17, 22 each time. And what I am doing is to get from 7 to 12, I don't know what happened to my things here, but to get from 7 to 12, I add 5. To get from 12 to 17, I add 5. To get from 17 to 22, I add 5. So because I'm adding 5 each time, that is my common difference. Okay? And then some terminology you need to be familiar with. When I say this down here, all this number means down here is the term number. So this is in the first spot in my list, the second spot on my list, the third spot on my list, the fourth spot on my list, the fifth spot on my list. So what this is telling me is in the first spot on my list, I have the number 7. Okay? What this is telling me is in the fourth spot on my list, I have the number 22. So this is just tells you what spot in the list it falls. Okay? All right, so first of all, I'm going to figure out, is this sequence arithmetic or not? And again, you want to look for a series of numbers where you're adding and subtracting the same number each time to get to the next number. So if I have negative 15 to negative 13, to get from there to there, I would add 2. And to get from negative 13 to negative 11, I would add 2. And negative 11 to negative 9, I would add 2. So yes, and my common difference is 2. Okay? In the next one, if you kind of think about what's happening there, to get from negative 2 to 4, when I do that, and again, you're looking at what you're adding and subtracting each time if it's arithmetic. So negative 2 to 4 would be to add 6. 4 to negative 8 would be to subtract 12. Negative 8 to positive 16 would be to add 24. Okay? So I am not adding and subtracting the same number each time. There definitely is a pattern to this. In fact, your pattern is that you're multiplying by negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, times negative 2 is negative 8, times negative 2 is positive 16. So there is a pattern to it, but it is not arithmetic because you are not adding and subtracting the same number each time. Okay, now we're going to get to fractions, and I don't want you to freak out too much about them. Sometimes it's hard to determine if you're adding and subtracting the same number each time when you're dealing with fractions. So what I would suggest doing is using your trusty calculator. And if you want to know what's happening, what you want to do is you want to take one number and subtract the previous every time. So I want you to take 1 minus 9/8 and tell me what you get. And then take 7/8 minus the previous number, which is 1, and tell me what you get. And just check a few spots. Okay? Then take 3/4 minus the previous number, which is 7/8. Tell me what you get. And the goal is to get the same number every time. And again, I'll just do one of these on your calculator so you can kind of see what's happening here. If I go 1 minus, and then I'm going to put in parentheses, 9 divided by 8. That's how I have to do fractions on here. Press enter, and then of course I can hit math, enter, enter to see what's happening, and I subtracted 1/8. Okay, Then I'm going to check the next thing I wanted to do. I wanted to do 7/8 minus 1. Okay, so when I do this, 7/8 minus 1. Hit enter, and then math, enter, enter. And again, I subtracted 1/8. 1/8, okay? I'm just going to check that last one now. 3/4 minus 7/8. So 3/4 minus 7/8. Math, enter, enter. And again, I subtracted 1/8. So what's happening every time is that you are subtracting 1/8. So yes, common difference is 1/8. Negative 1/8. Okay? And so on the next one, we're going to approach that very similarly. I'm going to take one number in the sequence, 10/7, and I'm going to subtract the previous number and see what I get. Okay? And check a couple of spots. Do I get the same thing when I take 12/5 minus its previous number, which is 11/6? Okay? Let's check it. I'm just going to check a couple spots here. So 10/7 minus 9/8. 10/7 minus 9/8. Hit math, enter, enter. And I get 17/56. Okay. Then I was going to check 12/5 minus 11/6. And there I get 17/30. So you can see that you're not adding and subtracting the same number each time on that one. So no, this is not arithmetic. Okay? All right. In the next ones, I'm going to give you a sequence that is arithmetic. I'm telling you that right away. So you're adding and subtracting the same number each time to get to the next number. And I want you to just figure out what the next couple numbers are. You don't have to use any formulas here. You can just go. So if you think about how do you get from negative 25 to negative 21? How do I get from negative 21 to negative 17? Each time you are adding 4. So that's what you're going to do. If you're at negative 13, you will add 4. And when I add 4 to negative 13, I get negative 9. And when I add 4 to that, I get negative 5. And when I add 4 to that, I get negative 1. Okay? Then, of course, when you have fractions, they get to be a little bit trickier, but you can do this. You have to first of all figure out what are you adding and subtracting each time. I'm telling you it's arithmetic, so I want you to take 7/12 and subtract the previous number, which is 1/2. Okay? If you don't have a graphing calculator, then you're going to have to do this old school by getting common denominators and changing the 1/2 to 6/12. And so 7/12 minus 6/12 is 1/12. Okay, so I am basically adding 1/12 each time. So I need to figure out what is 3/4 plus 1/12. Again, if you don't have a graphing calculator, you're going to have to go old school. So 3/4 plus 1/12. Oops. I'll get common denominators, so I would multiply the left side, each of those by 3, and turn this into 9/12. 9/12 plus 1/12 is 10/12, which we know reduces to 5/6. Okay, then I'll take 5/6 and add 1/12 to it. And I will change that, then the 5/6, multiply both sides by 2 to 10/12. 10/12 plus 1/12 is 11/12. Okay, or of course you can go to your calculator and do this on your calculator. And then 11/12 plus 1/12 is 12/12, which we know is 1. Okay? So that should fill in that sequence.